migrations, tech disruptions, and the stories of our diaspora. We cover the news that shapes our global future. NDTV World, your new home for global news, is here.
As of 5:30, we have recovered 43 deceased individuals in Kirk County. Among these who are deceased, we have 28 adults and 15 children. 12 adults pending identification and 5 children are pending identification at this time.
What do you say to the parents that are in grief, understandably frustrated, as to how in the world this could happen? How in the world you could have so many campers in the way of this danger and not taken out of there ahead of this war?
Yeah, you know, that's the question of the hour. But, you know, with these, this is, last time it was this bad, and this one is even worse than that, was 1987. You can't predict it. Everybody in the media even knows, everybody who does this and sees this every single day, you have the inverse effect of, if you continue to push it, and you see this in Houston areas all the time, you cry wolf. What happens when you continue to, you know, ramp things up and you continue to put a lot of information out there? You know, again, not to, you know, harp on the media, but there's a lot of stuff that gets overspun up, and we see that way too often, and then that trickles down. So we did look at stuff. Obviously, I had told the story. I was out on the river trail at 3:30. I left about 4 o'clock. We did not see any signs of the river rising, and by 5:20, we almost weren't able to get out of the park on the upper end. It rose that quickly.
I'm Allister. This is Washington Watch, a weekly roundup of the biggest stories from the United States and beyond.
Of course, every single one of the Republicans on the Rules Committee are for transparency and for releasing the files, just as the President of the United States is, and they wanted that to make it crystal clear.
US President Trump says he will begin the process of releasing a grand jury testimony in the Epstein case. Trump's remarks come after a Wall Street Journal story on an alleged lewd note Trump sent to the sex offender, something the president strongly denies. A judge will need to decide if the grand jury testimony will be released, but that's unlikely to happen anytime soon.
Well, at the end of 50 days, if we don't have a deal, it's going to be too bad. Yeah, the tariffs are going to go on and other sanctions go on.
In a stunning reversal, Trump has slammed Russian President Vladimir Putin over the bloodbath in Ukraine. The US president has warned the Russian leader to end the war in 50 days or face global economic consequences. Trump has also resumed weapons aid to Ukraine, a dramatic shift from his earlier position.
I don't know about Rosie. I watch Rosie. Rosie's a mess. She's a mess.
Comedian Rosie O'Donnell has hit back after President Trump suggested revoking her US citizenship despite her being born in the United States. O'Donnell called Trump the tangerine Mussolini. Trump also hinted at stripping Elon Musk of his citizenship, prompting concerns about the weaponization of immigration status. A federal judge could deliver another setback to Trump's push to limit birthright citizenship over 15 Democratic attorneys general are urging a federal judge to keep a nationwide block on Trump's executive order, despite a Supreme Court decision last month which made it more difficult for lower courts to block White House directives.
Ruling out the idea of firing Jerome Powell.
I don't rule out anything, but I think it's highly unlikely unless he has to leave for fraud.
At a closed-door meeting with White House Republicans, Donald Trump reportedly pulled out a draft letter about firing Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell. Trump's frustration: the Fed hasn't cut interest rates as fast as he wants. In a social media post, Trump called Powell a numbskull and said he was one of his worst appointments. Trump had nominated Powell for the post in 2018. The case of a convicted sex offender is turning into a political storm for US President Donald Trump. Trump is ordering the Justice Department to release grand jury testimony related to notorious pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. A grand jury is a legal body that determines if there's enough evidence for charges to be filed in a case. Getting these documents unsealed would require approval of a court. A grand jury has strict secrecy rules, and most courts are reluctant to lift them. Also, important to remember, it's only a portion of the case which Trump has called for to be released, not the so-called Epstein files. Now, Trump's announcement came hours after the Wall Street Journal's sensational report of Trump's connection to Epstein. Trump calls the report false, malicious, and defamatory. The president says he would sue the Wall Street Journal. Now, adding fuel to the fire surrounding the Epstein case, a video released by the Justice Department, which was meant to clear the air that Epstein died by suicide and suicide alone. It was a bit to quash any conspiracy theories of anything else happening. The video shows the outside of Jeffrey Epstein's prison cell hours before he was found dead. However, a news report by Wired says that metadata analysis showed that the video had nearly 3 minutes cut out. Meanwhile, Indian-American Congressman Ro Khanna is at the forefront in a battle to get the controversial Epstein files released. Khanna is once again pushing for another House vote on getting the files made public after Republicans earlier this week voted against a maneuver with the same aim. And a Reuters poll says most Americans think the president and the Trump administration is holding information about Epstein's client list. It all comes as many in Trump's MAGA and other loyal supporters have demanded more details on the Epstein case amid what some see as the Trump administration having flip-flopped on revealing more information on the case.
It's a hoax. It's started by Democrats.
I don't understand what the interest or what the fascination is. It's pretty boring stuff. It's sordid, but it's boring.
Trump once called Jeffrey Epstein a terrific guy, someone who, in his own words, likes beautiful women, many of them on the younger side. The two were seen together for years at high society parties in Florida and New York. But that relationship unraveled in 2004 during a real estate battle. Not long after, police got a tip about young women going in and out of Epstein's mansion. It triggered a scandal that still haunts America. Jeffrey Epstein was a financier with powerful connections and a long history of abuse. He exploited underage girls, often paying them for sex, and relied on Ghislaine Maxwell to recruit victims. In 2008, he cut a controversial plea deal in Florida, dodging federal charges. A decade later, he was arrested again, this time for trafficking dozens of minors. But before he could stand trial, Epstein was found dead in his New York jail cell. Officials called it suicide. Maxwell is now serving a 20-year sentence. The case became a perfect storm for conspiracy theories. An elite predator government leniency, and a mysterious death in custody. Liberals cited Epstein's ties to Trump. Conservatives pointed to Bill Clinton. When Trump returned to office, many believed he'd finally expose the full truth. But Attorney General Pam Bondi and FBI Director Kash Patel blocked the release of key files, shattering that expectation. The Justice Department now says those files contain no evidence against public figures, just disturbing content Epstein had downloaded, not filmed. But the secrecy sparked backlash from within Trump's own base. Elon Musk publicly claimed Trump was named in the documents, and former supporters began crying cover-up. President Trump has since disavowed the uproar. He called the outrage over the unreleased files a scam and blasted his own supporters for doing the Democrats' work. The case, once a symbol of elite corruption, has turned into a political minefield, revealing as much about power and public distrust as it does about the crimes themselves. As the Epstein files remain sealed, so do the answers. And in that silence, suspicion only grows. With Rhythm Arcadia, NDTV World.
Okay, let's take a closer look at this story. We're joined by journalist Daniel Block, senior editor at Foreign Affairs magazine. Where do we start, Daniel? This has clearly turned into a political firestorm for the Trump administration. Though how much really will this latest move by Trump to have some of these documents released help it control the burn, so to speak?
It's hard to say in advance. Obviously, it's kind of the main question right now. I think it could help, but I don't think it will make the outrage go away entirely. I mean, I'm going to assume that whatever's going to be released isn't going to mention Trump in a substantive way. And Trump will say, look, there's nothing here. I told you all, you need to listen to me. And, I heard you, you were angry. I released more information. Now go away. And I imagine that some of his followers, I think, will listen to that and say, okay, look, he's been totally vindicated. He did what he said. He released more files and more material. Now let's go home. But for the hardcore conspiracy theorists, there's really no way to satisfy them, I think, when it comes to this case, because they'll see whatever comes out and they'll say they're still hiding things. These aren't the full Epstein files that we were promised. And the question really is, of the people in his base and of American voters in general, how many fall in the latter category versus how many fall in the former?
Right. Daniel, what about the Wall Street Journal report? How damaging is that?
I would be surprised if it has major and substantive political damage to him. I think it's certainly getting a lot of play, and it will continue to get a lot of play and attention. The number of Trump voters who, will see that and say, wow, we think he actually is somebody who was abusing minors based on that report, I think is probably relatively small. I think absent some really hard proof that Trump himself is a pedophile, and I would be, again, very surprised if that type of document gets released. I think it's likely going to have minimal impact on his support. That said, you never know.
Daniel, what do you think about how the Democrats have been handling this? Are they really being heard?
I'm of two minds in terms of their political strategy here. On the one hand, they see this clearly as an opportunity to excite their own base, and then I think also to drive a wedge in Trump's coalition. On the other hand, I think this could come back, to bite them. You could see Trump, who's already trying to target different Democratic figures and Democratic elites in various ways, satisfying his base by saying, oh, there is some sort of ring and it involves high-level Democratic officials, and I'm going to send the FBI to investigate them. You could see Trump saying, oh, no, I actually am taking this seriously, and then investigating the people who are now criticizing him as a means of demonstrating that.
Right. Daniel, thank you for your time here on Washington Watch. In other news now, a surprising U-turn from President Trump on Russian President Vladimir Putin. After appeasing Putin for nearly a decade, this week saw Trump pivot. Trump has accused Putin of stringing him along and continuing some of Moscow's biggest bomb attacks on Ukraine, but Trump did not stop there. Trump has announced an arms deal in favor of Ukraine that will see billions of dollars of military equipment that will be purchased by NATO and sent to Ukraine for use on the battlefield. Trump has given Putin 50 days to strike a peace deal or face economic sanctions. Remember, not long ago, Trump called Putin a genius while blaming Ukraine for the war. Now, Trump says he's disappointed with the Russian leader.
How did you tell Putin this was coming?
My conversations with him are always very pleasant. I say, isn't that a very lovely conversation? And then the missiles go off that night. I go home, I tell the First Lady, I spoke to Vladimir today. We had a wonderful conversation. She said, oh, really? Another city was just hit. So it's like, look, he's, I don't want to say he's an assassin, but he's a tough guy.
For more, we're now joined by former U.S. Ambassador to NATO, Douglas Lute, for an exclusive interview. Ambassador Lute, thank you very much for your time here. A stunning pivot by Trump. Some say Trump felt perhaps slighted, he's given the Russian leader plenty of chances to stop the war, but Putin keeps dropping those bombs. What do you think happened with Trump's change of heart?
Well, it is in fact a pivot, because for the first 6 months of this Trump administration, there's been no pressure, no leverage asserted on the Russian side of the war in Ukraine. And so for the first time, the president is promising renewed arms shipments to Ukraine, American weapons to Ukraine. That's very helpful. And then, as you've reported, in the next 50 days, without a ceasefire in place, to which the U.S. and Ukraine have already agreed, without a ceasefire in place, the president promised economic sanctions to include sanctions on those who import Russian oil. So this is very, very important leverage. Why is this happening? I think, first of all, Trump really legitimately wants to stop the fighting in Ukraine. So I give him credit for that. I think, however, beyond that, there's another perhaps psychological explanation, and that is President Trump does not wish to be played. He does not wish to be diminished in any way, does not wish to be perceived as weak. And after 6 months of trying with no results, I think he fears that, in fact, he might be perceived as weak, especially among his political base here in the United States.
Ambassador Lute, like we've been talking about, Trump has given Russia a 50-day ultimatum, stop the war, face those secondary sanctions, basically tariffs on any country that buy Russian exports, such as China and India, which is mainly oil. Now, really, isn't that tricky, though, a tricky proposition for Trump himself, given the possible impact on crude prices that could spike and, affecting inflation in the U.S., something that Trump really doesn't want to see?
Yes, in fact, a secondary effect of secondary sanctions could well be a spike in oil prices, and that could affect the American inflation rate. So, yes, you're right. Now, if Trump and his advisors are wise, I believe they'll use this next 50 days while giving Russia a chance to move towards a ceasefire. They'll use these 50 days to mitigate the risk of inflation, and they can do that by negotiating and preparing to increase oil flows from other producers, most prominently those in the Gulf and even American producers themselves. So this next 50 days could be useful as a way to mitigate the risk of inflation.
Very, very quickly, Ambassador Lute, how much will this supply of arms really help Ukraine protect its territory in the war?
Well, it depends a lot on the details. So which arms, in what quantity, and on what timeline? Are these only defensive systems, such as the U.S. Patriot anti-ballistic missile air defense system, or do they include offensive systems, which would allow, without geographic restriction, allow Ukraine to strike the launch sites from which the air attacks originate? And these would be attacks inside Russia itself. So a lot depends on which systems and which restrictions might be placed on those systems.
Right, Ambassador Douglas Lute, thank you so much for your time here on Washington Watch. In other news now, a decades-long feud between comedian Rosie O'Donnell and US President Trump going from bad to worse this week. In a TikTok video, O'Donnell hit back at Trump, saying she's safe in Ireland, out of reach of, quote, Tangerine Mussolini. President Trump has threatened to revoke O'Donnell's US citizenship, even though she was born in the US. O'Donnell moved to Ireland earlier this year after Trump's re-election.
I don't know about Rosie. I watch Rosie. Rosie's a mess. She's a mess. But she left our country, which is a good thing, not a bad thing.
Now, in the recent past, Trump has also talked about rescinding US citizenship of billionaire Elon Musk and New York City mayoral candidate Zoran Mamdani. So what does this mean for those born in the US and also those who have become naturalized citizens, issues that concern many in the Indian community here in the United States? We're joined by Durya Dinojwala, an immigration attorney in Cleveland, Ohio. Durya, thank you for your time here. Durya, can US President Trump really revoke citizenship of a person that's born in the United States?
So the short answer to that question is no, because US citizenship by birth is granted under the 14th Amendment of the US Constitution, and it cannot be revoked by Congress or the executive branch. So in a generic format, their answer is an absolute no, except for high acts of treason. So if you have treason involved, I think that is the only instance in which a born US citizen can basically face some consequences. But in this case, for Rosie O'Donnell, I don't think she needs to worry about it. I don't think it's possible to do that.
This next question affects a lot of people, many Indians. What about in the case of naturalized citizens, say for those who came here as an immigrant and then got US citizenship, like Elon Musk or Zoran Mamdani? Can that be taken away?
I would say again, no. Because in this instance, it is being used as a political weapon to target some individuals. And that's not how the law works. But on the other hand, generically, a naturalized citizen can face some issues of revocation when in circumstances where they have committed fraud or misrepresentation on the application, on the N-400 application, when you go apply for naturalization, and if there has been some material misrepresentation where you forgot to name that, hey, you were a terrorist organization, part of something, and you fail to do that, then you can go back and revoke it. So that's one instance. The second instance would be, so it's a civil proceeding or a criminal proceeding. In the civil case, the government has to prove by clear and convincing evidence. So it's not easy to revoke somebody's US citizenship once they have been naturalized.
Thank you very much indeed, Durya, for giving us your insights on that, making things clearer for us and our viewers. Hope to have you on again at another point here on Washington Watch. In other news now, 12 Indian origin billionaires have made the Forbes 2025 rich list. That's more than any other country. India now ranks as the #1 birthplace for the wealthiest immigrants in the United States. Here's more. Well, time for Diaspora Connect, where we get you stories of Indians living here in the United States. Today we introduce you to a bunch of Indians who are chasing a career in cricket, a sport that most Americans would never even think about.
How much do you guys love cricket? What's the best part about cricket? You say batting? Yeah! In a country where baseball, soccer, and football dominate, these kids have a different passion.
I just like the openness and freeness of it. You could bat one day, you could bowl, and you can feel too.
It's a mix of intensity and it's really fun. I love how everyone puts effort in and it's a team effort. I'm going to go to India in 2 years to play cricket in India, and I'm going to try to play IPL and stuff.
Their background is from India, most of the kids from Afghanistan, Pakistan. So they are from cricketing nations, and their parents, they love cricket and they watch on TV, and they have a very big interest in cricket.
Despite cricket being an obscure sport here, the US does have a national team. Last year, Team USA made headlines after it won a game against Pakistan in the T20.
Get Three's unlimited same value plan with EU roaming included. And roam like you're at home in the EU from just £24 a month. Don't miss out. Go unlimited today. Buy now in store or at 3.co.uk today.
Someone's happy. Get that lucky cow feeling with luckycowbingo.com/bingo. The site that's bursting with beautiful bingo games. 75 ball bingo. Even 90 ball bingo. Fill your bingo boots today. Get that lucky cow feeling at luckycowbingo.com/bingo or download the Lucky Cow Android app from the Play Store.
I bought cars on finance, so I've made my claim.
If our lenders charge hidden commissions, then I've made my claim.
I could be owed thousands.
I've made my claim.
I've made my claim.
I've made my claim.
I've made my claim. It's so quick and simple.
You could be owed thousands in hidden commissions from vehicles bought on finance since 2007, even without the details.
I've made my claim.
Trust myclaimgroup.co.uk.
Claims made simple.
How long's it been then? We met about 8 years back. What? Yeah, serious relationship.
He has this way of looking into my eyes.
Knows how to treat me. Gentle, considerate.
Did I tell you he owns his own business?
I think he's going to pop the question.
Better or worse?
Better.
Our opticians and audiologists own their stores, so your care is their business, which can make them rather popular.
Apparently, he's seeing half the town.
Book an appointment today.
Now that retirement's here, it's time for me to focus on the things that really matter in life, like making sure my family can manage funeral costs when I'm no longer around. Which reminds me.
Welcome to British Seniors, the UK's #1 rated provider of over 50s life insurance.
Hi, I'd like a quick quote, please.
No problem. We're proud to offer our seniors lifetime guarantee. With 100% of claims having been paid, we guarantee your premiums will never go up and that you'll speak to one of our specialists in the UK. UK residents aged 50 to 80 are guaranteed to be accepted. Depending on your age, your loved ones can get a cash payout up to £10,000.
That money could help cover my funeral costs or be a gift for my grandson. I'll do it.
Plus, when you sign up, you'll receive a £135 gift card and free 24/7 GP advice and health services.
Be proud to protect your loved ones with British Seniors. To get a free life insurance quote today, call our UK team on 0800 881 5090 or visit britishseniors.co.uk.
This is so wild that I actually, from a dream, started a business. I don't think I could ever work for anyone else ever again.
Dealing with my lot means making smart choices. And with our family growing, I want to protect the life we've built. That's why I'm calling Smart Insurance.
Hi, I'd like a quick quote, please.
OK, you can choose a benefit amount up to £750,000 depending on your age.
Brilliant.
If you're a UK resident aged 18 to 64, you can apply with just a few health and lifestyle questions. For £250,000 of cover, the price starts at just £14.77 a month.
That's less than I thought, and could help my husband pay off the mortgage.
With our Smart Family Guarantee, you'll have peace of mind.
I'll go ahead.
You'll also receive a 100% advance in the event of terminal illness and 10% cashback on your first year's premiums. That's the Smart Cashback. Plus, you get your choice of a £125 gift card.
Protect the life you've built the smart way. To get a free life insurance quote today, call our specialist UK team on 0800 977 5753 or visit smartinsurance.co.uk.
This is NDTV, and you're watching NDTV 24/7.
Leading AI smartphone brand.
In today's interconnected world, India's voice is more crucial than ever. When India speaks, the world listens. At NDTV World, we are that voice.
Hello everyone, you're watching The Last Word and I'm Maria Shakil. Prime Minister Modi spent his day in two poll-bound states, Bihar and Bengal. Bihar goes to polls in few months from now and Bengal early next year. In Gandhi Maidan in Motihari, which is in East Champaran district, Prime Minister coined a new slogan, Banayenge Naya Bihar, Phir Ek Baar NDA Sarkar. This is Prime Minister Modi's 6th visit to Bihar in recent months, where he unveiled multiple projects worth over 7,200 crores and flagged off 4 Amrit Bharat Express trains. While slamming previous RJD and Congress governments, Prime Minister Modi said that RJD cannot give you employment who had grabbed your land in their name. He said, while making a veiled reference to RJD chief Lalu Yadav and his family members' alleged involvement in the land for job scam. Remember, Prime Minister Modi had earlier visited Bhagalpur, Madhubani, Rohtas and Siwan districts to address public rallies while unveiling and laying foundation stones for several thousand crore projects for the development of Bihar. Let's listen in to what the Prime Minister said and the rebuttal that came in from the RJD.
साथियों, कांग्रेस और आरजेडी गरीबों, दलितों, पिछड़ों और आदिवासियों के नाम पर राजनीति करते आए हैं, लेकिन बराबरी का अधिकार तो दूर, ये परिवार से बाहर के लोगों को सम्मान तक नहीं देते। इन लोगों का अहंकार आज पूरा बिहार देख रहा है। हमें बिहार को इनकी बुरी नीयत से बचाकर रखना है।
प्रधानमंत्री जी के आज के दौरे को लेकर के खुद उन्होंने कहा कि 7200 करोड़ की सौगात। आप बताइए पत्रकार मित्रों, लोकतंत्र में सौगात कोई चीज नहीं होती है, ये राजतंत्र का शब्द है। नरेंद्र मोदी देश के प्रधानमंत्री हैं, कोई मुगल बादशाह नहीं है, तो अव्वल तो ये शब्दावली बंद करें। पूंजी गुजरात में और मजदूर श्रमिक बिहार से जाए, उसके लिए आप बी ग्रेड ट्रेन देते हो और कहते हो बिहार वासियों तुम्हारी हैसियत यही है।
Prime Minister Modi then went to Bengal and launched a sharp attack on the Trinamool Congress government, accusing it of fostering 3 L's, which is lies, lawlessness and loot, during its rule while addressing a public rally in Durgapur. Addressing the row over Bengali-speaking migrants, Mr. Modi also said that wherever there is Bharatiya Janata Party governments, Bengalis are respected. He also accused the Trinamool Congress and the left of never considering to recognize Bangla as a classical language, which he said BJP has done.